Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from July 14th, 2024, in the space and time continuum. Had a lot lined up to talk about because, again, it was a very full week. But then yesterday, of course, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and kind of everything is coming to a screeching halt. So it would seem. Of course, it changes some people's plans. The Biden campaign is pulling down their ads. They have already. They were running some really good ads. President Biden did address the nation a few times now. I believe 3 times now. He is treating the situation like a president of the United States would treat the situation. Really makes you wonder how, if it were reversed, say in 2020, if somebody tried to assassinate Joe Biden, how would Donald Trump have addressed the nation? These are things that we cannot forget about. Now, everybody's saying we got to tone down the rhetoric. Okay, I understand where that's coming from. But I would like to point out that Republicans are repeating that Trump is not a fascist. Stop calling him a fascist. He's not a fascist. What? Your party is having to repeat over and over again that your leader is not a fascist. That's not a good sign. I'll stop calling Trump a fascist when he stops being a fascist. I'll stop pointing out that Project 2025 will bring this country back to a Nazi Germany type of situation when they drop it or change it. Because I'm telling the truth. I'm not trying to incite violence. We have to stay on track to fight against the possibility that Project 2025 will be implemented in this country. Now, people are saying that Donald Trump showed strength, and they're even saying that he was kind of like Theodore Roosevelt, which is, of course, a lot of them had to get go on Wikipedia to look up Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt, I'm sorry. I knew Theodore Roosevelt, and sir, you are no Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, that's just asinine. When Trump stood up, now, I totally understand that he would want to show the audience that he's okay, that he's not dead or dying. He wanted to show that he was okay. That's one thing. But fist pumping and yelling, fight, fight, fight. The guy who shot at you is one of your own. He's not a lefty or anything like that. I don't even think that his motivation was all that political. I think he just is somebody who is having a bad life. He was wearing a T-shirt, Demolition, and they have a thing called the Demolition Ranch. They're all about the Second Amendment. They're gun fanatics. The shooter was wearing that T-shirt. He's a registered Republican. He's only 20 years old, and one of his friends was being interviewed saying that he was bullied pretty much every day. Now, in 1981, the motivation for trying to assassinate Ronald Reagan was to try and impress a famous female movie star at the time. So obviously just a very mentally disturbed person. He didn't even seem to care about politics. We don't know what the motivations were for this shooter. I'm not going to say his name. I don't even know his name. I'm not going to put his name in my head even. Because it might be something similar to the guy who I'm also not going to mention the name of, who tried to shoot Reagan to get attention, to become famous. I don't know. we'll never know because he was immediately shot and killed by a sniper with the Secret Service. Interesting thing that happened just right before this rally. Donald Trump put out a fundraiser. He said, all hell breaks loose in 1 hour. A Trump rally alert. When I take the rally stage, I could be making a major announcement that's sure to strike fear into the hearts of our deep state enemies. That was sent by the Trump campaign just right before this rally. What was the announcement he was going to make? I actually have a prediction that I think maybe he was going to announce Nikki Haley as his vice president. Nikki Haley suddenly, but before this shooting, it was just put on the schedule for this week's upcoming Republican convention that Nikki Haley is going to be speaking at it. And when I first saw that, I thought, uh-oh, Trump's campaign people or somebody with half a brain must have finally talked him into saying, you know, you should have Nikki Haley be your vice president, which will give him the best chance. Still won't win because Nikki Haley also wants a nationwide abortion ban. And that is something that we're not going to stop talking about. Now, of course, I'm going by the seat of my pants here. My whole agenda is kind of thrown out the window because of this event, but I don't want that to be true. We are going to go through some insane things that happened this week. I just want to say, yes, I want the country to come together. No, I don't want political violence. I don't care who it's toward. I don't want people getting hurt. I don't want anyone getting hurt. I don't want Donald Trump getting hurt. I don't want him getting killed. The rhetoric was stoked by Trump. Much more political terrorism has come from the right. Bernie Sanders had his campaign headquarters burned down last week. Okay? This stuff goes on all the time. There are way too many guns. This 20-year-old guy had I don't know enough about guns. I heard it was an AR style, which doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but I know that they should be illegal. I know that. And he used the type of gun that President Biden called just last week to have a ban on. Donald Trump and his people don't want a ban on it. Well, okay. Careful what you ask for, or don't ask for in this case. We heard Republicans immediately blaming this on Biden, saying things like the DA should, I have it here, Mike Collins, a Georgia elected official. Joe Biden sent the orders, he said. He goes on, the Republican district attorney in Butler County, Pennsylvania, should immediately file charges against Joe Biden for inciting an assassination. Now, these are the same people who are really glad that the Supreme Court just said that no president can be held liable for anything he does, basically. Although when Biden does it, he should have charges pressed against him immediately. J.D. Vance. Okay, here's what he writes. Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. That's a quote from J.D. Vance, who is the first person I ever heard call Donald Trump the American Hitler. Now, he's using part of Donald Trump's body as a lollipop because he wants to be his vice president. And it's those reasons that I don't think he's going to be chosen as vice president. People are saying Marco Rubio. Well, Marco Rubio is an elected official in Florida. He would have to... You can't have the president and the vice presidential candidates be from the same state. This is something I didn't know until, I don't know, yesterday or Friday, I think. Very interesting. So Marco Rubio would have to resign his Senate seat and move to a different state in order to be Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. So I don't know why people keep talking about him. You know, Donald Trump doesn't want anyone to be his vice president. The last one he tried to have killed. Yes, I'm saying he tried to have him killed because that's an accurate statement. He saw what was going on January 6th. He didn't care. He would have cared not at all if they succeeded in dragging Mike Pence outside and putting him in that noose that they had for him. Yes, I said that because it's the truth. It's not inciting violence. You know, we have Democrats, Bill Clinton, violence has no place in America, especially in our political process. After Nancy Pelosi's husband thing happened, Donald Trump wrote, I purposefully didn't comment on Nancy Pelosi's very weird story concerning her husband, but now I can, because she said something about me. With glee. That was really quite vicious. She said I saw a scared puppy as she watched me on television. I don't even remember that, but he goes, I wasn't scared, nonetheless. Now, how mean a thing to say. She's a wicked witch whose husband's journey from hell starts and finishes with her. She is a sick and demented psycho who will someday live in hell. That's Donald Trump talking about Nancy Pelosi's husband assassination attempt. And then Donald Trump Jr. posted a picture of some like tighty-whitey type of underwear and a hammer saying, I got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready. Paul Pelosi was nearly killed with a hammer. Okay? And these are the people who are saying, stop calling my dad a fascist. Your dad is a fascist. I'll stop calling Donald Trump a fascist if he stops being a fascist. This event yesterday does not change any of that. Now, I understand, something like the Biden campaign taking down their ads for a few days. Cool it here for a couple days. As I'm recording this incident only happened yesterday. You're not going to hear this until at least Monday night. And we probably by then will have had the first day of the Republican convention. Let's see how they tone down their rhetoric. The people who know what their plans are saying, unless the plans for the Republican convention are vastly changed, they are going to escalate the calls for violence. They're going to escalate. They're not coming together with us. I will come together with them if they come together with us, because we're the ones who are trying to prevent fascism. They're calling Vice President Kamala Harris a DEI hire, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. First of all, what's wrong with those things? Nothing. And secondly, they're just insulting her. It's a racist, misogynistic. That's what they're saying on their side. Now, I'm not trying to do the, you are. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that I'm not changing how I'm talking about Donald Trump or the Republicans. I'm not changing it. We need to go on pointing out the truth. Donald Trump is a fascist. Project 2025 will make America into 1930s Nazi Germany. Donald Trump had Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago for a meeting. He's a fascist dictator. Which one am I talking about? Both of them. Donald Trump's not a dictator at the moment, but he wants to be. Why would I stop pointing that out? So, again, we need to stick together on this. When I talk about these things, I am not meaning to bring harm to anybody. I'm not telling you to go hurt somebody. You know that. I've never said that. That's not what we're doing. That's not what President Biden's doing. That's not what his campaign is doing. Democrats just now finally got a backbone enough to point out these truths. I mean, it was pointed out, the whole Epstein thing was pointed out by Representative Liu, calling on the media to, hey, why are you not reporting on the fact that Donald Trump is all over these new releases of the Epstein papers? That gets really nasty fast if we go down that road. And that's all truth. Those are real things. We've heard Donald Trump say the most gross things about young girls over many years. It's disgusting and sick. And I'm not going to stop pointing that out. All right. It's time for us to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some things that actually happened this week. We're going to go back to the show as though things aren't different, because they shouldn't be that different. We need to prevent this type of event from ever happening again. We are trying to. It's difficult. A big reason is because there are way too many angry people and way too many guns. And I didn't cause either of those things to happen. People on the right have. So I'm kind of incensed about all this. And it's horrible that this happened. And again, I am glad Donald Trump is not hurt worse than he is. But yeah, well, we will talk also about the upcoming Republican convention more when we come back. Let's take a short break. You're listening to A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host. We'll be right back. Satellite View. A reminder that if you like the music you're hearing on this show, go to toddmikkelson.com, press the music link, and you can find this and a lot of other music that I've written over the years. This week is the convention coming up. I imagine Donald Trump will show up with a big bandage on his ear, and everybody will lose their minds and cheer like he's some sort of superhero. The fact that he's telling, his first message is fight, fight, fight. It was scary. It was very scary last night. There was a lot of weird things going on. The way these things unfold, I should say, is always very confusing. There was a lot of, mixed stories. For a little while, people were saying there were 2 shooters and that there were at least 2 other deaths. Very sadly, there was 1 death. And also, very sadly, there are 2 more people who are in very critical condition. It's a horrible thing. The timing of it is very peculiar. I'm not saying that it was staged, but it's just, the way it's... what I'm glad to see is, like last night, I was thinking, okay, this messes with so many things. And I'm talking politically here. It's something that we do have to consider. But what I'm seeing is people aren't falling for that. I'm seeing Republicans trying to say, stop calling Donald Trump a fascist. That's what caused this. No, we're not buying it. We're not buying that. And Donald Trump is a fascist. So it's just funny that you have to keep defending him from people calling him a fascist over and over. There are other things about Donald Trump that should still be pointed out because they are truths. This is Representative James McGovern from Massachusetts.
We have a presumptive nominee for president facing 88 felony counts, and we're being prevented from even acknowledging it. These are not alternative facts. These are real facts. A candidate for president of the United States is on trial for sending a hush money payment to a porn star to avoid a sex scandal during his 2016 campaign, and then fraudulently disguising those payments in violation of the law. He's also charged with conspiring to overturn the election. He's also charged with stealing classified information, and a jury has already found him liable for rape in a civil court. And yet, in this Republican-controlled House, it's okay to talk about the trial, but you have to call it a sham.
We take down his words.
It's okay to say the jury is rigged.
Mr. Speaker, I demand that his words be taken down.
It's okay to say the court is corrupt.
The gentleman will suspend.
But not Trump is corrupting the rule.
See what he was pointing out there, and of course you heard Republicans saying, no, stop it, stop telling the truth about Donald Trump. Other things from this week. Inflation actually declined 0.1% in June. Now, that is something that's not really supposed to happen because there's always a little bit of inflation, and that's normal and that's good. Actually, a decline in inflation over a long period of time is a big problem. But people on the right have been saying we need inflation to go down. It did. It went down in June. Gas prices declined in June. Electricity prices declined in June. Rent had its smallest monthly increase. Just 13% of workers in the U.S. are now earning less than $15 an hour. 2 years ago, that number was 31.9%. The GDP has grown faster under Biden than under Trump, regardless of whether you include Trump's COVID losses, even besides the COVID problem with the economy. The U.S. is now getting more power from wind than coal. Who's going to say that's bad? Is that a bad thing? The economy is booming in a huge way. In a huge way. It's scaring Trump. So these are things that he was saying last week. They threatened the lives of my family. They raided my home. They used a rigged show trial to label me a felon. Radical left Democrats thought today would be the end of my campaign, but instead, because this was on the 11th when he was supposed to be sentenced, but instead, we're going to deliver them a humiliating defeat they'll never forget. I could have gone to prison today. Sick. But because of you and the Supreme Court, we won big. Yeah, his sentencing was supposed to happen on Thursday the 11th, and it didn't. And now it's put off until September, I think. I'm going through a bunch of stuff here on the screen. Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from Project 2025. Yeah, that's not going to work. There is evidence. I'm not even going to play it. I will. Here, I'll play. This is the president of the Heritage Foundation. He's the mastermind behind Project 2025.
We've been working with all of them on one project since soon after Joe Biden took the oath of office, before any conservative presidential candidates had even entered the race. Our Project 2025 has developed a comprehensive policy agenda, but even more importantly, recruiting people, 20,000 people to go into the next administration, hopefully to help take back this country. We want no credit. We want the American people, if President Trump is elected again, President Trump and his administration, to take credit for that. But it will also be a great sign, if all of this is successful, that in fact, as we know in our prayer time, but maybe not every time when we're watching the news, that the Lord is still smiling upon America.
Okay, that's a lot of the way they talk. It makes me feel quite uncomfortable, I gotta admit. That, of course, was Kevin Roberts, the president of Heritage Foundation, talking about that Trump should have the credit for Project 2025. Trump's trying to say, I don't know what it is. He's lying. Now, here's another thing that happened last week. This is insane. You think that Congress is kind of a sacred place, and a sacred place to be a part of. They were trying to pass bills. So Republicans are in charge. They spent a whole day trying to pass a bill called the Freedom of Refrigerators and another one called Dignity for Dishwashers. Because they say the left is coming for your kitchen appliances. Marco Rubio, who still thinks he's trying to run to be Trump's VP, even though he would have to resign from the Senate and move to a different state, apparently, in order to do so. I don't know if even he knows that. But he said that Kamala Harris is trying to get rid of plastic straws. And then he said, paper straws suck. Okay, now, I don't know if you remember when Chris Rock had a joke many years ago where he said, like, people say, I take care of my kids. Well, you're supposed to take care of your kids. What I'm saying here is that I think Chris Rock would say, Marco Rubio just said paper straws suck. Paper straws are supposed to suck. That's what straws do. Straws suck. That's what their job is, Marco. Little Marco. I don't want him being my VP, though. I don't. Another thing. Okay, I'm just kind of going down my list. I realize this show is it's by the seat of my pants because everything got changed because of the event from yesterday. Joe Biden had a huge comeback this week. He hosted NATO in Washington, D.C., and he did a great job of it. He spoke numerous times, very eloquently. He did a no teleprompter, 1 hour, nearly 1 full hour of taking questions from the press. And he did a great job. And everyone knew it. In the meantime, Donald Trump said, I didn't even know what the hell NATO was a couple months before I became president. I didn't even know what the hell it was. Okay? This is what we're dealing with, all right? He also has angered pro-life Republicans because he took language out of their platform talking about a national abortion ban. So there are people, and these are very involved people. These are people who actually, to be a part of this national, putting together your national platform and being a delegate at the national convention, it costs you thousands of dollars. You got to travel, you got to get a hotel. It's very, you're very dedicated if you're doing that. And there's people on the committee that said we got rolled by Donald Trump. And now, for the first time in 40 years, there's no language, there's no what they call pro-life language in our platform. I have a huge problem with them calling it pro-life, but you know what I'm talking about. He also took out language about gay marriage. The sanctity of marriage BS. He took that out because he knows both of those things, the way the Republicans have it in their platform, is extremely unpopular. And he realizes it'll hurt him in his chances in the election. So he wants the language taken out. Other Republicans are saying, don't worry about it. It's just, to help in the campaign. We really do want to do a national abortion ban. Don't worry. We'll still do a national abortion ban. We just can't talk about it right now. Look, we got to get elected. That means we got to lie. Right now, we got to lie. We got to lie to everybody so that we can do what we want to do. After we get elected, then we'll start killing everybody. He does want concentration camps built. All right? Project 2025 talks about that. They want to deport, I've heard anywhere from 11 to nearly 20 million people. The number I've heard the most is like 11 or 12 million people, and even that amount. These are American workers, mostly. It'll absolutely collapse our economy. Not to mention other things like a 10% tariff on everything. Economists, CEOs do not want Donald Trump to become president. They all can see that Donald Trump will tank our economy. He will decimate this country. He wants to turn it into 1930s Nazi Germany. I'm not going to stop saying that because it's true. Me pointing out the truth does not incite violence. Bernie Sanders said, a couple things. I thought it was interesting Bernie Sanders said this yesterday or today or something on TV, that politics really should be boring. We need to talk about the issues. And they're kind of boring. They're very important, but it's pretty boring. All of this ramped up talk, again, brought by Trump, is what is the problem. Politicians are not supposed to be stars. We should be back in the time where we don't barely know the name of most politicians. We're supposed to be living our American lives, not fighting to keep our freedoms from the far right trying to take them away. But I saw a show about John Gotti. It was a really good new 3-part series about how they got Gotti. I think it's called Get Gotti. And there's a very flamboyant woman who was palling around with all the mobsters. And she was saying, in the 1980s, it was great. We just had millions of dollars and cocaine, and when we were just partying, and, we had the world by the tail and blah, 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 because they were criminals. She was the girlfriend of the criminals. And she said in this documentary, I really give credit to the lawmakers that were able to finally get John Gotti to pay a price. He ended up going to jail and dying in jail after I think he was there for 9 years. And she said, it's the hard and kind of, she didn't say in so many words, but she said it's the hard, nerdy, boring work that these law enforcement officers did. Going through tape recordings, just this boring, really, really boring, hard work. She said, they don't get any credit because they're behind the scenes. We don't pay attention. That's what politics is supposed to be too. Making laws. You're not supposed to try and come up with stupid bills like the dignity for dishwashers. We don't want dignity for immigrants. We don't even want dignity for Democrats, but we want dignity for dishwashers. Yeah. Anyway, I think I've actually gone through a lot of this week. Also, Joe Biden also had a really great rally on, I believe, Friday night that everybody's touting as like, wow. And the crowd was nuts. There's a huge movement behind Joe Biden. Us. It's us, the voters. We want Joe Biden to be our candidate. I'm totally fine with Kamala Harris being our candidate. Like I said, I'm fine with my dog Tucker being our candidate. I'm fine with an inanimate object being our candidate over Donald Trump. But I want Joe Biden to be our candidate because right now he's got the best chance of winning against Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump wins, we become Nazi Germany. So I want Joe Biden to be our presidential candidate. And the way he's handling this whole assassination attempt on Donald Trump is how we want our United States president to handle it. He called Donald Trump on Saturday night. They talked, apparently like normal people. I'll believe that when I hear recordings of it, but whatever. At least Joe Biden tried to do that. And again, I will speak with you. I will talk about issues with you. I will come together with you if you stop trying to do all this stuff you're doing that will result in fascism. I'm not going to come to your side. And there's nothing wrong with having two sides. There's nothing wrong with absolutely disagreeing with each other. We should be working together to make America a better place. That's what we want to do. So when you guys are ready to do that with us, we'll come together. It's not a threat. That's just how things are. Now, if you think the Republican convention is going to tone down the rhetoric, we'll see. We'll see what happens this week, the Republican convention. It was already going to be a feces show, and I think it still is. I don't think this assassination attempt changes things. I think a lot of people on the right were very happy about it because they were like, oh, Donald Trump's going to win for sure now, and then they immediately start trying to blame it on Biden, and they immediately start saying, the leftists brought it on by calling him a fascist and all this kind of stuff. Here we are a day later, almost exactly 24 hours later, and it's just not happening that way. I saw Lauren Boebert today in an interview. She's not ramping anything down. She says Biden is to blame for this assassination attempt. She said that today. They're unable to tone it down. And I think we're going to see that proven this week at their convention. You think Donald Trump is going to go up there and say, we need to cool it down. Everybody needs to cool it down. Joe Biden's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. I don't want people saying that he should get hurt. You think he's going to come up and say that? No, he's not. He's going to have a big bandage on his ear, and he's going to fist pump, and he's going to say, we got to keep fighting. He's going to use He purposefully uses this violent rhetoric because he knows his base will do it. And in fact, one person did. It's just that it was aimed at him instead. These are weird times. If we stick together, we will be fine. Donald Trump's not going to win in November. He's no closer to winning now than he ever was. And he knows it. And now, the spotlight is on the Republicans. You're saying that the left needs to cool down their rhetoric. Prove it by example. Show us that you can do the same. The airwaves are yours all week. Show us that you can tone it down. Show us that you can not make fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband almost getting assassinated as well. He got hit over the head with a hammer. It cracked his head open. And you made fun of it. Think it's funny. All right, let's see what you got. We'll be watching all week long. And then we get to see Donald Trump. And I've seen people say, everyone's going to be really fixated on Donald Trump's words on Thursday night. He's not going to use words. We'll hear about, by the way, my friend and I were making predictions about the vice presidential pick. I said that I think it's going to be Hannibal Lecter. He said it's going to be Jeffrey Epstein. And then Heidi, my wife, said she thinks it's going to be a family member. Wow. The crazy thing is, there's a chance that any one of those three things could come true. I'm a little nervous that it's going to end up being Nikki Haley now. That's something that I just kind of have a weird feeling about how she all of a sudden announced she's going to be speaking at the convention when supposedly the Republican, the Trumpers hate her guts. I think it's possible that somebody on the Trump side talked him into picking her for his VP, because ultimately he doesn't care. So if they say, hey, listen, she'll give you the best chance of winning the election, he'll say, okay, whatever, just put her in. I don't want to talk to her, though. I hope that does not happen. I hope this helps you a little bit. There's nothing to be afraid of here. This ultimately doesn't change anything. It's kind of like the debate. Do you think that women who are afraid, especially in red states, they're afraid of dying because of any complication with a pregnancy possibility? Do you think they're going to say, oh, no, Joe Biden wasn't good at that debate, so now I'm voting for Donald Trump so that I definitely die if I have any problems with my pregnancy? Do you think that's happening? Do you think people are going to all of a sudden say, oh, now I feel sorry for Trump, I'm going to vote for him because he almost got his head blown off by one of his own people that he drove crazy and made sure that they had a gun? No. This ultimately doesn't change anything. It really doesn't. It was scary. It was very scary. I was super bummed about the whole thing for many reasons. Yes, it's sad that this is the state of America. This assassination attempt does not change anything. The Republicans are going to be vile, disgusting idiots all week at their convention. They're not changing anything. If anything, they might be worse. They're not going to tone it down. So this ultimately really doesn't change anything about the election. So let's all stick together. Make sure that we keep each other sane during this chaos. Definitely feels like a very chaotic summer going on. There's nothing to be afraid of. We can't act out of fear. We act out of strength, not fear. So let's keep each other strong and sane. We have a couple more months to go, and it's summer. We need to enjoy it. But hey, thanks so much for listening this time, and we'll speak at you again soon.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.